Kharkiv has always been a special target for Putin. It's Ukraine's second-largest city, sitting just 30 kilometers from the border. It was a primary objective during the initial 2022 invasion attempt. Even after that initial blitz failed and Russian forces were pushed back in the stunning 2022 Kharkiv counteroffensive, the Kremlin never truly looked away. For Putin, Kharkiv isn't just a city. It is a symbol of Ukrainian defiance that sits dangerously close to the Russian heartland. In the strategic planning rooms of Moscow, the most critical phase of the spring-summer 2026 offensive was dedicated almost entirely to this front. The objective was clear, cold, and calculated. Establish a massive buffer zone around the town of Vovsk. Shield the Belgorod Oblast from the sting of Ukrainian artillery and drone strikes. And advance to a position where the Russian army could maintain constant, suffocating artillery pressure on Kharkiv itself. The Kremlin's logic was that if Vovchansk were captured and held, the Russian military could launch ground and artillery assaults on Kharkiv with far greater ease and frequency. This is why Putin was willing to pay a staggering price in blood and iron for such a small town. Starting in the bitter cold of late 2025, Russia began amassing an enormous force in the region, pulling units from across the theater to consolidate power. The 69th Motorized Infantry Division, operating under the 6th Combined Arms Army, was moved into position. Alongside them, the Chechen Akhmat forces Kadyrov's personal TikTok warriors who were now being forced into real, high-intensity, met-grinder operations were redeployed toward the Vovchansk axis. They attempted to wear down the Ukrainian defensive lines using a cocktail of brutal tactics. Small group infiltration, sustained creeping artillery barrages, coordinated human wave attacks designed to find gaps in the Ukrainian armor. The strategic objective was multi-layered. First, it was intended to pin down Ukraine's northern resources, preventing Kyiv from shifting its best brigades to the main offensive theater in Donetsk. Second, it was a land grab designed to seize parts of the Kharkiv Oblast and declare new territorial gains for the benefit of the domestic audience. Finally, it was about optics. The Kremlin desperately needed to broadcast a message on Russian television that said, "We are defending our borders, we are winning, and the buffer zone is secure." However, as the spring of 2026 bloomed, Ukraine launched a counteroffensive in April and May that turned the Kremlin's entire plan on its head. Vovchansk, located just 5 to 6 kilometers from the Russian border, is no longer a springboard for a Russian advance. Instead, it is transformed into a graveyard for Russian strategic ambitions. The events unfolding on this narrow strip of land have completely upended the calculations made in Moscow months prior. At the center of this dramatic breakthrough was the 23rd Assault Battalion, a key component of the Kharkiv Second Corps of the Ukrainian National Guard. These are not just soldiers. They are the specialists of the active defense model. The battalion carried out a surgical, coordinated assault in what is widely considered one of the most challenging sectors of the entire front. Ukrainian assault groups did the unthinkable. They crossed the Russian contact line and cleared forward defensive positions, pushing all the way into the depths of company-level fortifications. This marked a psychological and operational turning point. For the first time in months, Ukraine, which many international observers claimed was stuck in a permanent defensive, Crouch launched a meaningful, successful counteroffensive in this region. It was a loud, clear demonstration that Ukraine had not only survived the winter pressure, but had maintained its high-end offensive capabilities. To truly grasp the difficulty of this operation, you have to visualize the battlefield of 2026. This isn't the maneuver warfare of the 20th century. The area around Vovchansk has been pulverized by months of unrelenting violence. Imagine a landscape of total devastation. Destroyed buildings that offer no cover, roads so heavily mined that even a foot soldier takes their life in their hands with every step. In the constant predatory buzz of drone surveillance at every turn. Picture a town where half the infrastructure has been leveled to the dust. The remaining buildings are riddled with holes, and the streets are carpeted in a thick layer of rubble and shrapnel. In this environment, every window is a potential sniper's nest. Every hole in the pavement could hide an anti-personnel mine. And above it all, the drones are circling like vultures, waiting for a single movement. In this transparent battlefield, advancing is infinitely more dangerous than defending. The moment an attacking force moves, it is detected by thermal sensors and struck by FPV drones or precision artillery. Yet in footage released by the Ukrainian regiments, we see these assault units advancing through heavily damaged urban sectors and dense charred forests. The success of the Vovchansk operation was made possible by a level of coordination that borders on the flawless, a synchronicity between infantry on the ground, reconnaissance drones in the air, and electronic warfare units suppressing Russian communications. Interestingly, the defense of Ukraine has become a global cause in a very literal sense. Serving alongside the Ukrainian National Guard were foreign volunteers from Latin America, bringing specialized experience to the front. As the 23rd Assault Regiment stated in its official announcement, they continue to carry out missions in the most challenging sectors, proving that coordinated assault operations can still break the deadlock of trench warfare. The concrete results of this bravery were immediately visible on the digital maps of the front line. Significant progress was made around the village of Storytsia and the forested belts to its north. Storytsia is a name the Kremlin likely wants to forget. It sits only 4 to 5 kilometers from the Russian border. Let that sink in. Ukraine is now within striking visual distance of the Russian frontier in this sector. This proximity is a nightmare for Russian regional governors and military commanders. At such a close range, Ukrainian reconnaissance systems can monitor the other side of the border in real time. They can see the supply trucks, the fuel depots, and the staging areas inside Russia itself. Clearing these forests might look like a minor tactical gain on a map, but in reality, it is a Herculean task. Forests do not clear themselves. Every tree is a potential shelter. Every bush is an ambush point. Every ditch is a pre-prepared minefield. Russia attempted to turn these natural barriers into permanent fortifications. Ukraine drove them out, and with every meter cleared, the Russian position in the north grows more fragile. While the world was watching Vovchansk, similar clearance operations were being conducted toward Vilcha. Ukrainian forces advanced to the immediate vicinity of the village, seized Russian positions, and even managed to recapture territory in the southeastern part of Vovchansk that had been lost months ago. When you look at these gains together, the picture is undeniable. Russia's months-long effort to build a cordon sanitaire or buffer zone has been reversed at the local level. This counterpressure isn't an isolated incident. Ukraine is applying a consistent model of transitioning from defense to offense across the entire northeastern front. In the Kupiansk direction and near Svatov, the Russian military is failing to achieve the depth it seeks. There are growing reports that Russian forces have been pushed back south of Krylyakivka, a line that was supposed to be the axis of a second Russian buffer zone. The hold, clear fortify Sokola strategy, where Ukraine absorbs an attack, clears the infiltrators, and then fortifies the line further forward, is systematically eroding Russia's offensive momentum. While these are tactical gains, their strategic weight is heavy because they shatter the Kremlin's narrative. For months, Russian propaganda has claimed an undisputed initiative everywhere. That claim is crumbling in the mud of the Kharkiv Oblast. Ukraine is proving it can maintain offensive capacity even where Russia is trying hardest to assert control. So, where does this leave Russia's overall 2026 summer offensive? Independent observers have geolocated nearly 3,000 artillery, mortars, and airstrikes between February and May. This data reveals 2 massive concentrations of Russian power, the Orikhiv sector in Zaporizhia and the line just north of Pokrovsk. These are the main axes where Putin is gambling his remaining reserves. There has been a notable shift in strategy. In 2025, Russia tried to drive a wedge between major cities. In 2026, they switched to an encirclement strategy, specifically targeting Pokrovsk and Murmurad. However, there is a reality the Kremlin did not account for: the sheer resilience of the Ukrainian active defense. Despite the immense pressure on Pokrovsk, the front line has remained remarkably stable. Russia gained territory, yes, but the strategic equation hasn't changed. They are amassing the 90th Tank Division in the ruins of Pokrovsk, trying to create conditions for a breakthrough toward Rivne. But the cost is ruinous. Since early May, Ukrainian units in that sector alone have eliminated or wounded over 300 Russian soldiers and destroyed 40 pieces of heavy equipment. These aren't just numbers. They represent the slow bleeding of Russia's professional corps. The Russian war machine remains heavy and dangerous. It's fueled by a leader who views the capture of the Donbass as the cornerstone of his political legitimacy. But a heavy machine requires a massive, functioning nervous system, roads, staging areas, fuel, and ammunition. If you cut the nerves, the limbs stop moving. And this is where Ukraine's 2026 strategy gets truly innovative. By using a vast network of drones to blockade the logistics routes from Mariupol to Pokrovsky, Ukraine is turning the Russian rear into a lethal extension of the battlefield. Mariupol, the city that has become a symbol of Russian occupation and propaganda reconstruction, is the most striking example. Ukrainian troops aren't marching through the streets of Mariupol yet, but their presence is felt every single day. The 1st Azov Corps has released footage of reconnaissance and attack drones patrolling the highways around Mariupol, 160 kilometers behind the front lines. They are tracking Russian convoys in silence and striking with surgical precision. For a Russian truck driver, the road is no longer safe. For a Russian commander, the supplies are no longer guaranteed. This is the drone-era version of air interdiction. It doesn't require a billion-dollar fighter jet. It requires a skilled pilot with a headset and a $500 drone. When you combine the northern successes at Vovchansk with the logistics strangulation in the south, a serious strategic crisis emerges for Putin. In the north, his offensive is broken. In the south, his rear is under fire. In the center, his breakthrough is stalled. The narrative of time is on our side is cracking. The advances toward Vovchansk have not only disrupted the buffer zone plan, but have also humiliated the Akhmat units and Kadyrov himself, who had personally promised a quick victory. Ukraine's proximity to the border now provides a favorable position for sabotage, reconnaissance, and cross-border drone operations. While a massive invasion of Russian territory like the 2024 Kursk operation might not be the immediate goal, the constant threat of infiltration keeps thousands of Russian troops pinned down guarding their own border instead of attacking Ukrainian positions. Ukraine is also leading the world in technological warfare. In the Vovchansk operation, we saw the perfect marriage of human bravery and machine precision. Every trench was mapped by a drone before a soldier ever entered it. FPV drones acted as personal air support for small squads. And looking forward, deployment of fiber-optic drones, impervious to electronic warfare and AI-powered turrets, is changing the game. With over 24,000 robotic missions carried out in just the first few months of 2026, Ukraine is transforming the very nature of conflict. So, what cards does Putin have left? He has the summer offensive card, but it relies on an attrition model that is losing its effectiveness. He has the mobilization card, but he fears the domestic explosion it might cause. He has the energy war card, but Ukraine's air defenses are stronger than ever. He has the diplomacy card, trying to use international figures to pressure for a ceasefire. But as long as Ukraine is making tactical gains, that card is weak. And finally, he has the nuclear card, which grows less credible the more it is waved without action. In conclusion, the gateway to Kharkiv that Putin tried so hard to open has slammed shut. Vovchansk was meant to be his prestige victory. Instead, it is a testament to the failure of the Russian buffer zone strategy. The Kremlin can still attack, and it can still cause immense suffering, but it can no longer dictate the map. The assumption that time favors Russia is crumbling. Week by week, the initiative is being wrestled away. So, what are your thoughts on this? Is this the beginning of a larger Russian collapse in the north, or can the Kremlin find a way to restart its stalled machine? I'm really curious to hear your opinions in the comments. To stay updated on these rapidly changing events and to see more of our unique analyses, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on those notifications. If you're on the go, join us on Spotify. We'll turn your commute into a deep dive into the forces shaping our world. Stay informed, and we'll see you in the next one.